I sat in the front row of the courtroom, my hands folded neatly in my lap. My sister-in-law, Melissa, stood at the witness stand, her voice clear and confident. "Your Honor, she's lying to everyone," Melissa said, pointing directly at me. "That baby isn't my brother's child. I have DNA test results right here that prove it." She waved a manila envelope in the air like a victory flag. The courtroom went silent. I could feel every eye turning toward me, waiting for me to break down. My husband, Tyler, sat across the aisle with his family, his face twisted with disgust as he stared at me. His mother clutched her purse, shaking her head slowly. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small curve at the corner of my lips. Melissa's confident expression faltered for just a second. She didn't understand yet, but she would soon. They all would. This courtroom drama wasn't my ending. It was theirs. I had spent 6 months preparing for this exact moment, and Melissa had just walked straight into my carefully laid trap. The judge took the envelope from Melissa and began reading the papers inside. Tyler stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I can't believe I ever trusted you," he shouted at me, his voice echoing through the room. Before anyone could stop him, he yanked his wedding ring off his finger and threw it at me. It bounced off my shoulder and clattered onto the floor. "Get out," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "Take that bastard baby, and never let me see either of you again." His mother stood up too, walking toward me with her face red and angry. When she reached me, she actually spit at my feet. The bailiff started moving toward her, but I raised my hand. "It's fine," I said calmly. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and picked up my purse. The entire courtroom watched as I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Tyler's family already celebrating. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd destroyed me completely. I pushed open the courtroom doors and stepped into the hallway, my head held high. Phase 1 was complete. I drove home in silence, my phone buzzing constantly with messages from friends and family. I ignored them all. My apartment felt empty when I walked inside, but I didn't mind. I made myself tea and sat on the couch waiting. I knew what was coming next. At exactly midnight, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I recognized. It belonged to Vincent Sterling, Tyler's family lawyer. He was one of the most expensive attorneys in the state, and the Whitmore family kept him on retainer. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello?" I said, keeping my voice neutral. "We need to talk," Sterling said. His usually smooth, confident voice sounded strained. "There's been a development." I took a sip of my tea. "What kind of development?" I asked. "Melissa just called me," he said. "She admitted that the DNA test she showed in court today was forged. She paid someone to create fake results." I waited, saying nothing. Sterling continued, his words coming faster now. "But that's not why I'm calling. You need to leave your apartment right now." "Why would I need to leave?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Sterling's breathing was heavy on the other end of the line. "Because Tyler and his father found the folder you left on his desk," he said. "The one labeled inheritance fraud. They know you've been investigating them. Tyler is on his way to your place right now, and he's not coming to apologize." I stood up and walked to my window, looking down at the street below. Sure enough, I could see Tyler's black SUV pulling up to the curb. "I see him," I said calmly. "Miss Hayes, I'm serious," Sterling said. "Get out now." Tyler isn't thinking clearly. His father told him to do whatever it takes to keep you quiet about what you found. I grabbed my pre-packed bag from the closet. I'd been ready for this moment for weeks. "Thank you for the warning, Mr. Sterling," I said. "I'll remember this." I hung up and slipped out the back entrance of my building. By the time Tyler broke through my front door, I was already at a rental apartment 3 blocks away, watching everything unfold on my security cameras, through the camera feed on my laptop. I watched Tyler storm through my apartment. He was shouting, throwing things, looking for me in every room. When he finally stopped in the kitchen, he saw the note I'd left on the island. I watched him pick it up and read it. His face went pale. The note was simple. The court reporter recorded everything today, including Melissa's perjury. "Sleep well." Tyler pulled out his phone and made a call. Even without audio, I could tell he was panicking. He paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair. After a few minutes, he left, slamming the door so hard that one of my picture frames fell off the wall. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. Everything was going according to plan. The Whitmore family thought they were in control, but they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated me. They saw me as weak, as someone they could push around and discard. But while they were busy celebrating their courtroom victory, I'd been gathering evidence of their crimes for months. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The next morning, I posted a photo on social media. It was a picture of me holding my baby, both of us looking sad. The caption read, "Sometimes the truth hurts more than the lies, but it always comes out eventually." I kept it vague on purpose. Within an hour, the post had hundreds of comments. Tyler's friends started commenting, asking what happened. Then some of Melissa's friends saw it and began demanding answers. The speculation grew wild. Some people defended me, others called me names, but everyone was talking about it. And that was exactly what I needed. By noon, Melissa was getting attacked in her own comment sections. People who'd seen my post were connecting dots, even without me saying anything specific. "Did you lie about the DNA test?" one person asked. "Why would you do that to your own brother?" asked another. I watched the chaos unfold from my laptop, taking screenshots of everything. Melissa tried to defend herself, but each comment just made things worse. She was digging her own grave, one post at a time, and she didn't even realize it. 3 days later, I had a secret appointment with a private doctor across town. I'd already taken a DNA test weeks ago, but I needed the official results for what came next. The doctor, a woman named Dr. Patricia Holmes, sat across from me with a folder in her hands. "I have your results," she said, opening the folder. "Your baby is definitely Tyler Whitmore's biological child. The DNA match is conclusive." I nodded. I'd expected that, but Dr. Holmes wasn't finished. "However, there's something else," she said, looking uncomfortable. "When I ran Tyler's genetic markers against the database you provided the samples from his parents that you obtained, I found something unusual." My heart started beating faster. "What did you find?" I asked. Dr. Holmes slid a paper across the desk. "Tyler Whitmore is not the biological son of Jonathan and Victoria Whitmore," she said. "There's no genetic match at all. He's not related to either of them by blood." I stared at the paper, reading the numbers over and over. This was bigger than I'd imagined. The entire Whitmore fortune was built on bloodline inheritance. If Tyler wasn't really their son, everything changed. That evening, my phone rang. It was Victoria Whitmore, Tyler's mother. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. "Please," Victoria said, her voice cracking. She was crying. "Please, we need to talk. Can I come see you?" I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said, "but I'll meet you at the coffee shop on Maple Street in 1 hour. Come alone." When I arrived at the coffee shop, Victoria was already there, sitting in the corner booth. She looked terrible. Her perfect hair was messy, her makeup smudged from crying. I sat down across from her without saying hello. "I'll give you $500,000, she said immediately. "Cash, transferred anywhere you want. Just sign a paper saying you'll leave Tyler alone and never contact our family again." I took a sip of my coffee, watching her squirm. "Why?" I asked. "Why are you so desperate to make me go away?" Victoria's hands shook as she reached for her purse. "Because you're destroying everything we've built," she whispered. "Please, just take the money and disappear." I leaned forward, looking Victoria straight in the eyes. "This isn't about me and Tyler anymore, is it?" I said. "This is about the inheritance. This is about the Whitmore bloodline." Victoria's face went white. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "You know something," I continued. "Something that Melissa was trying to protect when she forged that DNA test. Something worth destroying your son's marriage over." Victoria stood up suddenly, her chair scraping backward. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice was shaking. "Stay away from my family." She practically ran out of the coffee shop, leaving her purse behind. I opened it and found exactly what I was looking for: a checkbook, credit cards, and a small address book filled with names and numbers. I took photos of every page before calling her to come back for it. When she returned 10 minutes later, I handed it to her with a smile. "You dropped this," I said sweetly. That night, I sent the audio recording of our entire conversation to a local blogger who specialized in society gossip. By morning, it was everywhere. The headline read, "Whitmore family matriarch caught attempting bribe." The story spread like wildfire across social media. Tyler's law firm called him in for an emergency meeting. Within 24 hours, he was suspended pending an ethics investigation. Apparently, trying to silence someone with family money while working as a lawyer looked very bad. Tyler called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer once. Instead, I went to visit my lawyer, a sharp woman named Angela Pierce. "They're falling apart," Angela said, showing me news articles on her tablet. "The firm is distancing themselves from Tyler. Melissa is being investigated for perjury. Victoria's charity board is asking questions about financial irregularities." I smiled. "Good," I said. "But we're not done yet." Angela raised an eyebrow. "What else do you have planned?" I pulled out the DNA results showing Tyler wasn't Jonathan and Victoria's biological son. Angela's eyes went wide as she read them. "Oh, my God," she whispered. "Does Tyler know about this?" I shook my head. "Not yet, but he will soon." Angela sat back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. "You're terrifying," she said. "Remind me never to cross you." While the public focused on Victoria's bribe attempt, I started digging deeper into Melissa's life. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Marcus Freeman. He was expensive, but worth every penny. 3 days later, Freeman called me with news. "You were right to be suspicious about Melissa," he said. "I found something big." We met at a diner outside town. Freeman slid a folder across the table. Inside were bank statements, casino receipts, and loan documents. "Melissa has a gambling problem," Freeman explained. "She's $2 million in debt to some very serious people, and she's been stealing from the Whitmore family's charitable trust to pay them off." I looked through the papers, my mind racing. "Does anyone else know about this?" I asked. Freeman shook his head. "I don't think so. She's been very careful. But the auditors are scheduled to review the trust next month. When they do, they'll find the missing money." This explained everything. Melissa hadn't forged the DNA test just to hurt me. She'd done it to protect herself. If I was kicked out of the family, there'd be less scrutiny on the finances. She needed me gone before anyone discovered her theft. I remembered that Tyler had never changed his email password after we separated. It was a small detail, but it gave me access to everything. I logged into his account from my laptop and started reading through his messages. What I found was even better than I'd hoped. Tyler had been emailing Melissa constantly, begging her to fix this mess before the auditors arrived. He knew about her theft. He'd known for months and had been helping her cover it up. In one email, Tyler wrote, "The audit is in 3 weeks. If they find out about the missing money, we're all going to prison. You need to make this disappear." Melissa's response was frantic. "I'm trying, but she's not backing down. Maybe if we discredit her completely, no one will believe anything she says." I downloaded every single email and forwarded them to a secure cloud account. Then I sent copies to Angela. This wasn't just fraud anymore. This was conspiracy. Tyler and Melissa had worked together to destroy my reputation to cover up their crimes. The irony was beautiful. They'd accused my baby of being illegitimate while committing actual crimes themselves. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Victoria. Her voice was different this time, not angry or desperate, just defeated. "Jonathan had a heart attack," she said quietly. "He's at Memorial Hospital. Tyler thought you should know." I hung up without responding and drove straight to the hospital. When I arrived, Melissa was standing outside Jonathan's room like a guard dog. "You're not allowed in there," she said, blocking my path. "Family only." I pulled out my phone and showed her a document on the screen. "According to this court order, I have every right to be here," I said. "Now move." Angela had helped me get an emergency order that morning. Melissa's face turned red, but she stepped aside. Tyler was sitting beside his father's bed, holding the old man's hand. He looked up when I entered, his expression a mixture of hatred and despair. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I came to see Jonathan," I said, walking to the other side of the bed. Jonathan's eyes were closed, machines beeping steadily around him. "He doesn't want to see you," Tyler said. But then Jonathan's eyes opened. He looked directly at me, and something like recognition flickered across his face. "She should be here," Jonathan said weakly, his voice barely a whisper. Tyler started to protest, but Jonathan raised his hand slightly. "Everyone leave," Jonathan said. "I need to speak with her alone." Tyler and Melissa looked at each other in panic, but they couldn't refuse. Slowly, They filed out of the room, closing the door behind them. Jonathan gestured for me to come closer. I leaned down so I could hear him. I knew, he whispered. 30 years ago, I knew Victoria was lying to me about Tyler. My heart stopped. What do you mean? I asked. Jonathan reached under his pillow with shaking hands and pulled out a small key. Safe deposit box, he said. First National Bank. Box to 17. Everything you need is in there. He pressed the key into my palm. They've been poisoning everything for years, he continued. Melissa and Victoria. They manipulated Tyler against you. I was too weak to stop them. His eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, he whispered. Protect your baby from them. Don't let them destroy another generation. The next morning, I went to First National Bank with Angela. We presented the key and Jonathan's written authorization to the bank manager. Inside box to 17, we found something worth more than money. We found the truth. There were dozens of letters, all carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. Letters from Victoria to someone named Gregory Moss, dated from 30 years ago. Letters talking about her affair. Letters discussing her pregnancy. Letters planning how to pass off another man's child as Jonathan's heir. Tyler isn't Jonathan's son, Angela breathed, reading over my shoulder. Victoria got pregnant by her lover and convinced Jonathan the baby was his, but there was more. There were also letters between Melissa and Victoria from the past 2 years. Letters where they discussed me, where they planned to drive me away from Tyler. She's going to ruin everything, Melissa had written. If she stays in the family, she'll eventually figure out the truth about the inheritance. We need to destroy her credibility before that happens. They'd been planning this for years. The forged DNA test, the public humiliation, everything, it had all been orchestrated long before I even knew I was pregnant. The second court date arrived faster than I expected. We were back in the same courtroom, the same judge presiding. This time, we were there for the official DNA results, the real ones, not Melissa's forgery. Melissa sat at the defendant's table with her lawyer, looking confident. She thought she'd covered her tracks. She'd paid off the lab technician to tamper with the samples. What she didn't know was that I'd gotten to him first. I'd paid him double what Melissa offered, and he'd recorded everything, every word, every attempt at bribery. The judge called the session to order. We're here to establish paternity, she said. I have the official DNA results from the court-appointed laboratory. She opened the envelope and read silently for a moment. Then she looked up at me. According to these results, Tyler Whitmore is confirmed as the biological father of the child in question. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Tyler's face went pale. Melissa stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward. That's impossible, she shouted. I had those samples. She stopped, realizing what she'd just admitted. The judge's expression hardened. Miss Whitmore, are you confessing to tampering with evidence? No, Melissa stammered. The judge held up her hand for silence. Before we proceed, I have one more piece of evidence to present. She nodded to the bailiff, who wheeled in a television screen. This video was submitted by the plaintiff's attorney this morning. The screen flickered to life, showing security camera footage from the laboratory. There was Melissa, clear as day, handing an envelope of cash to the lab technician. Her voice came through the speakers. I need you to switch the samples. Make sure the test shows that Tyler isn't the father. Here's $10,000. There's another 10 when it's done. The technician's response was equally clear. I can't do that, ma'am. That's illegal. But Melissa persisted, increasing her offer, threatening his job, promising him protection. The courtroom watched in stunned silence. When the video ended, Melissa was crying, her lawyer frantically whispering in her ear. The judge looked disgusted. Miss Whitmore, you committed perjury in my courtroom, she said. You forged evidence, attempted to bribe a court officer, and obstructed justice. She nodded to the bailiff. Take her into custody, Melissa screamed as the bailiff approached her. This is her fault, she shouted, pointing at me. She's destroying everything. She's ruined our family. After the hearing, Tyler tried to talk to me in the hallway. He grabbed my arm gently, his eyes red from crying. Please, he said, can we just talk for 5 minutes? I pulled my arm away. Talk about what, Tyler? He ran his hands through his hair, looking desperate. I was manipulated, he said. My mother and Melissa, they convinced me that you were lying. They showed me fake evidence. They made me believe. Stop, I interrupted. You made a choice, Tyler. When Melissa showed that forged DNA test in court, You didn't ask questions. You didn't demand a second opinion. You just believed her immediately because it was easier than trusting your own wife. Tears rolled down his face. I know, he whispered. I know I was wrong, but I love you. I love our baby. Can't we fix this? I looked at him for a long moment. Once, I would have forgiven him. Once, I would have believed that love could overcome anything. But not anymore. You threw your wedding ring at me, I said quietly. You told me to take our bastard baby and never come back. Your mother spit at my feet and you said nothing. I was angry, Tyler protested. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, I said firmly. You were thinking very clearly. You chose them over your own child. You chose their lies over the truth. And now you have to live with that choice. I turned to walk away, but Tyler grabbed my arm again. Wait, he said desperately. There has to be something I can do. Money? The house? Whatever you want. I smiled sadly. Actually, there is something, I said. I pulled out a document from my purse and handed it to him. What's this? He asked. Our prenuptial agreement, I said. Read section 7, paragraph 3. Tyler's hands shook as he read. His face went from confused to horrified. The morality clause, he whispered. Because of the public scandal, because of your family's fraud and your role in covering it up, I'm entitled to 80% of your personal assets, I explained. Your lawyer helped me calculate the total this morning. It comes to about $3 million. Tyler staggered backward, leaning against the wall. You're taking everything, he said. No, I corrected. I'm taking what I'm legally entitled to. You're keeping 20%, which is more than generous, considering you tried to destroy me. I'll fight this, Tyler said, but there was no strength in his voice. As we stood in the courthouse hallway, 2 police officers approached Melissa. She was still in the building, talking to her lawyer near the stairs. Melissa Whitmore, one officer said. You're under arrest for perjury, attempted bribery of a court official, and embezzlement. They read her rights as they handcuffed her. Melissa's lawyer stepped back, wanting nothing to do with what was coming. That's when Melissa saw me watching. You did this, she screamed across the hallway. You destroyed everything. Our family was perfect before you came along. I walked toward her slowly. When I was close enough that only she could hear me, I whispered, your family was built on lies. I just knocked over the first domino. Melissa struggled against the handcuffs. I'll tell everyone the truth about Tyler, she shouted. I'll tell them he's not really a Whitmore. Go ahead, I said, pulling out my phone. Because I have the IRS on speed dial, and they're very interested in talking to you about $2 million in missing charity funds. Melissa's face went pale. The officers led her away, her screams echoing through the marble hallway. Tyler watched his sister being arrested, his face blank with shock. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my new apartment when someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Victoria Whitmore standing on my porch. She wasn't dressed in her usual expensive clothes. She wore a simple dress, no jewelry, and her hair wasn't styled. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. What do you want? I asked. Victoria's eyes were red, her face gaunt. Please, she said, and then she did something I never expected. She dropped to her knees on my porch. Please, I'm begging you, don't take the mansion. It's all we have left. I looked down at her, remembering how she'd spit at my feet in court. Get up, I said. This is pathetic, but Victoria stayed on her knees. The bank is foreclosing, she said, crying. Jonathan's medical bills, Melissa's legal fees, the IRS investigation, we've lost everything. The mansion is being auctioned next week. I crossed my arms. And you want me to do what exactly? Let me stay, Victoria whispered. Just let me live there. I'll pay rent. I'll sign anything, please. I pretended to think about it. Anything? I asked. Victoria nodded desperately. Anything. I pulled out a document I'd prepared weeks ago. Sign this, I said. Victoria took the paper with shaking hands. What is it? She asked. It's an affidavit, I explained. A sworn statement admitting that you lied about Tyler's parentage 30 years ago. That Tyler is not Jonathan's biological son. That you've known this truth all along and built your entire life around hiding it. Victoria's face crumbled. If I sign this, Tyler will lose everything, she whispered. Tyler has already lost everything, I said coldly. The only question is whether you end up homeless or not. Victoria stared at the document for a long moment. Then, with trembling hands, she signed it. I took the paper and had it notarized immediately. You can stay in the mansion, I said. For now. Victoria looked up with hope in her eyes. Thank you, she breathed. Don't thank me yet, I said. Because tomorrow, I'm showing this to Tyler. The hope died in Victoria's eyes, replaced by pure terror. But she said nothing. She just stood up slowly and walked back to her car, looking 20 years older than she had when she arrived. I watched her drive away, the signed affidavit in my hands. This was the final piece I needed. I met Tyler at a coffee shop the next day. He looked terrible and shaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. I slid the affidavit across the table without saying anything. Tyler read it slowly. With each line, his face got paler. When he finished, he just sat there, staring at the paper. My whole life is a lie, he finally said. Your mother's lie, I corrected. You're still you, Tyler. You're just not who you thought you were. Tyler laughed bitterly. I'm not a Whitmore. I have no claim to anything. The trust fund, the inheritance, the family name, none of it is mine. No, I agreed. None of it is yours. Tyler looked at me with hollow eyes. What happens now? He asked. Now you have a choice, I said. You can fight this in court, spend the next 5 years in legal battles, drain whatever money you have left. Or you can walk away. Walk away to what? Tyler asked. I have nothing. I pulled out another document. Vincent Sterling is working for me now, I said. He's prepared a settlement offer. You sign away all parental rights to our baby. In exchange, I'll give you $50,000 and a plane ticket anywhere you want to go. Tyler stared at the settlement papers like they were a death sentence. You want me to give up my son? He asked. He's not your son, I said quietly. Not anymore. You gave up that right when you threw your wedding ring at me and called him a bastard. I was wrong, Tyler said desperately. I admitted I was wrong. Doesn't that count for anything? I leaned forward. You know what counts, Tyler? That when your family told you to choose between them and your child, you chose them. Every single time. Even now, even after everything that's happened, you're more worried about the Whitmore name than your own son. Tyler put his head in his hands. What kind of life will he have without a father? He asked. A better one than he'd have with you, I said. I'll make sure he knows where he came from. I'll make sure he understands what happened. But I won't let him grow up around people who tried to destroy his mother. I stood up to leave. You have 48 hours to decide, I said. After that, the offer expires, and you get nothing. 2 days later, Sterling called me. He signed, he said. Tyler Whitmore is out of your life permanently. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just relief. It was finally over. 6 months later, I was at the park with my baby. He was almost a year old now, laughing as I pushed him on the swing. My phone buzzed with a notification. The Whitmore mansion had been sold at auction. I smiled and checked my banking app. The property had been purchased by a shell company I'd created months ago. I now owned the house where Victoria had once looked down on me, where Melissa had plotted against me, where Tyler had chosen his family over our child. That evening, I moved into the master suite with my son. I stood at the window, looking out over the gardens, and made a video on my phone. They thought they were playing chess, I said to the camera, my baby sleeping peacefully in my arms. They thought they could manipulate the board, control all the pieces, and decide the outcome. But they forgot one important thing. I smiled. I was never a piece on their board. I was the one who owned it all along. I posted the video and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, I'd start my new life in the mansion. But tonight, I just held my baby close and watched the sun set over the property that was now mine. The Whitmores had tried to destroy me. Instead, I dismantled their entire world, piece by piece, move by move. And I'd done it all with a smile.